How people perceive the information matters almost more than the information itself. The reason I'm so big on this evidence shit is because that's the frame that people consume your message in. If I have a book that says how to market a book and it has 10 reviews on Amazon, do I need to consume the book? No, I already know the book sucks because I have evidence that the book sucks. I have visual proof that everything you're saying is not true or that you aren't even doing it. It's just like the teacher who says, I'm giving financial advice to people and they're like, my advice is better than Warren Buffett's. It's like, yeah, sure. You just forgot to build an $800 billion company. No big deal.
Consistency is another big word. You published work online, a podcast, right? Everything that you've done. And there was a big portion of the beginning of that where I don't think anyone ever heard of you or listened to it or watched it or very little. And then all of a sudden, at least to the outside world, not to you, but all of a sudden you're everywhere. Everyone's seeing you everywhere. What was that like at the beginning stages and then the transition point? And it's still, I guess, technically happening, but the transition
early,
point
baby.
to where
Early.
is that? Yeah,
so we're still early,
but very early though. I think you said for years from the videos I watched, years and years you did it, and like nobody listened, nobody paid attention. Yet you kept at it, you stayed consistent, kept going, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, there's probably a variety of reasons, you're everywhere. Can you walk me through your stages of being willing to be consistent, and then seeing it how it's paying off for you now?
Yeah, so I'll give 3 maybe insights off of 6 years of podcasts. So I started July of 16 was my first podcast. And I think it was called like the Gym Secrets podcast because that's what it was called then. And this is right as I was starting Gym Launch. And I had gym owners who were in my world. And so I wanted to just kind of create, this is my lattice work of thinking about how we grow gyms, right? Now, at that point, I already had 6 gyms and had sold them and had done 30 turnarounds. So like I had evidence that I knew what I was talking about, just for context. And so I talked about just varied, like, here's how you fix churn. Here's how you sell membership. Here's how you deal with like the spouse isn't there objection. Here's how you can get someone to commit to 3 days a week on your off hours so that you can increase the capacity of your facility. Like, here's how to arrange your lobby so that you can increase your sales percentage. Like, here's how you can weave in reviews and test it. Like, I mean, just all the shit that you do to run a business. So number one, the reason I was able to stay consistent with it was because it was easy for me to do, because I always tried to interweave it in my normal work schedule. And so for me, it was like twice a week, I would go live in a Facebook group and I'd get questions from all the licensees of like whatever the issue was. And if I saw a recurring issue, that would be the topic that I would talk about. So it was very responsive for me. And I already knew the answer to the question. And I just would dive deep on it for X period of time. And sometimes I'd get riled up and I would do one impromptu because someone was like, man, all these leads are broke. And then I would just lose my shit on camera about how they were selling out of their own wallet and they should be trying to help people, blah, blah, blah. And so that was insight. Well, number one is that it had to be natural and easy for me to do to work within my current kind of constraints. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what led to the consistency. The 2 things that led to the breakthrough at year 4.5 was, number one, is I rebranded the podcast to The Game. Because you can imagine how many people are like, oh, you got to listen to this podcast called Gym Secrets. Doesn't matter what the episode's about. You're not going to listen to it unless you own a gym. Like, it's just like, why would you listen to it? And the second one, or I guess this is insight. This is the third insight, but the second of the breakthroughs was that I started asking people to share it. That was it. Those are the 3 things that changed. But the actual format itself has not really changed. I stopped talking about gym specific, gym only, in September of 19. So that was when I said, I'm not going to talk about gym stuff anymore. I'm just going to talk about general business. And then literally that month, like the next month it grew, and the next month it grew, and the next month it grew. And then when I started saying, hey, if you're enjoying this podcast, like, I don't run ads, I don't do anything, like, just share it with a friend. That was like the next increment of growth. But that was it. You know what I mean? I mean, I didn't make content anywhere else besides my podcast. And I stayed for 4.5 or whatever it was, 4.5 years at 2,000 downloads a month.
Wow.
And I feel really confident that the content in there is still good. But I didn't package it for mass consumption. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons I had over the last 2 years growing my, quote, personal brand, whatever you want to call it, is that I've learned a lot about packaging. And so, like, when you're making like a short, or you're making a tweet, or you're making an ad, Like the first 3 seconds is 80, 90% of it.
Hmm.
Like I want to tell this story because I think it'll help somebody in the audience. So good friend of mine, huge marketer back in the infomercial days, television. And he had done 2 or 3 home run infomercials and he recorded one with Larry King. All right. And so he flew Larry King out. He was going to interview him about his book. So it was like a big ego moment for him. He was like, hey, and tonight you're live with Larry King. And he just did it just like an episode of Larry King. And he ran the ad and it bombed. And he was like, I know this is a killer ad. Like he's like, I've done this. I know this is a killer ad. Like, why isn't this working? So he went back, he watched all his best infomercials, and he realized that he just missed the hook. So he flew back the entire production crew, flew Larry King back to re-record the first minute. He re-recorded the first minute with the new script, did $100 million the next year. How people perceive the information matters almost more than the information itself. And this is what, like, zooming out a chunk, the reason I'm so big on this evidence shit is because that's the frame that people consume your message in. If I have a book that says how to market a book and it has 10 reviews on Amazon, do I need to consume the book? No, I already know the book sucks because I have evidence that the book sucks. I have visual proof that everything you're saying is not true or that you aren't even doing it, right? It's just like the teacher who says, I'm giving financial advice to people. And they're like, my advice is better than Warren Buffett's. It's like, yeah, sure. You just forgot to build an $800 billion company. No big deal. That's it. And so it's the lens, right? It's the lens that everyone's going to perceive everything you say through. And so like, I want people to have the evidence so that when they speak about something, they can be confident about it. Confident because they have a high degree of probability that it is true because they've experienced it.
Seeing you. No, I love it, man. I love it. Well, I have a million notes, dude, that this would go on for 8 hours. But I just saw recently another one flying through that I thought I'm going to talk to him about this, even though it has nothing to do with anything else.
Sure.
What's the deal with never skipping dessert?
This is great. This will segue into something that I've been wanting to talk about.
Good.
So like I see the videos that are like the Hormozi content method, the 4 pillars of Alex Hormozi's brand. And they try to like ascribe marketing terms to like what we're doing. When in reality, we do none of that. I'm always curious. I'm like, oh, what are my pillars? And so like Never Skip Dessert happened because I come from a fitness background and everyone in my early audience was fitness people. And they're always like, never skip Monday, never skip leg day. And I was like, fuck it, never skip dessert. You know what I mean? And so it was just counter to everything else. I just thought it was cute and funny because I like eating dessert and I still have a 6-pack. And so maybe there's another way to do it. And so anyways, the point was, it was just me being me, right? And then I had no idea it was it was just one time I did Never Skip Dessert. And then like 50 people tagged me the next week with desserts and stuff. And so I think it was a relatively cute saying put around an event that people usually want to document anyways. When dessert comes and it's all fancy, like you want to take a picture of it, but you don't want to be that person. And it gave people permission to post something they wanted to post anyways. And so I think that's why those two things kind of combined. But for me, like somebody was like, so did you like think about the wife beater? And I was like, I get hot a lot. And so I wear wife beaters. Like I can work out in them and like I can throw something on top if I get cold. You know what I mean? And I throw the flannels on that I have because they're really soft and comfortable. That's why I wear it. Like I wear the shorts that I wear because they can get wet. I can go to the gym and I can go to a nice restaurant in them. And I can keep my phone in my side pocket. And while I'm sitting down right now without having to take it out of my pocket every time. I had one of my team ask me this. He was like, so what do you tell somebody who is boring? You're just like interesting. I was like, I don't think that's true. I think that people suppress themselves because they're afraid of other people's judgment. I think people would do more things that are more like them if they weren't afraid of looking different. But if the whole point, like the point isn't to stand out. The point is just do you. And because everyone else doesn't do them, you will stand out as a result. But it's more the outcome than it is the desired result.